Hey everybody, welcome to Houdini Hangout. It is June 12th, and tonight we're going to be picking up a little bit where we left off last time. Don't do that too often, but I think tonight it should be fun to have a little bit of a continuation of what we were working on last week. I'd like to get it maybe to a little bit of a more finished spot, basically. So that's kind of my idea here. So that's what we're going to be working on tonight. And just checking, making sure I'm seeing the chat and everything like that. So yeah, hope you're all doing well. Hope everybody out there is having a great, great summer. Summer's just about starting, I guess, or is already sort of here in some places. And sorry, it looks like I might have a little bit of a connection issue there. No, okay, cool. Sorry. Just saw a little thing kind of flare up. So, so like I said, we're getting close to the release of a new Houdini version, so that should be really exciting. We talked a little bit about that last time. Actually, this week is Annecy in France, and so that will be kind of kicking off. I think it actually started already, if I'm not mistaken, but that should be like I said, that should be there should be some cool stuff that they're going to be showing and talking about there. Definitely showing some animation processes and things like that are that people have been working on since the last release. So it should be really cool, and should be some great presentations there. But tonight on the stream, I'm going to be taking this logo that we made last week and continuing, like I said, to make something hopefully a little bit more finished. We got pretty far along last time, but I think we can definitely get a little bit further here. So let's just see here. So here is what we had last time. I'll just switch over to my desktop here. So this is what we made last time. And so we were doing some dynamic pinning and things like that. And what I would like to do, I think, is have some vellum fluid kind of flow over this and make the colors kind of appear where the water or the fluid touches it. So that's my plan for today. So that's pretty much it. So, as usual, I like to always kind of start things off here by saying that if you have any questions or thoughts or comments or anything like that that you would like to add, if you think you know or have a suggestion for a better way of doing something, if you have really anything at all that you'd like to add, any questions, anything like that, please feel free to drop those in the chat. This is not just meant to be me here showing you something that I figured out. In fact, a lot of times I'm trying to figure this stuff out on the fly a little bit and going through a troubleshooting process and kind of figuring out how to get to an end result. So if you have a question about something that's happening here or a thought for a better way of doing it, always feel free to drop that into the comments, and we can kind of chat about that as we go. So with that said, I guess we will just jump over and get started messing around with some Houdini stuff. All right, so let me hide that. Actually, I'll just close that. All right, so let's take a look at what we had from last week. So this is the simulation. I'll give this a second here and let it kind of start to go. There we go. And what I was actually kind of thinking it might be interesting is to make this a little bit bigger, but we'll leave this for right now and kind of just play around with the vellum side of it and see what what we can get into there. We'll do some fluids and things like that added to it. I'm just making sure that everything is still working the same way here. So let's just play this back here. Everything's looking fine. Cool. All right, because I didn't cache this because we're going to be adding some fluid into it. I'm going to emit some fluid into it. So let's do this. Let me save this as a new file, because this is the one from last week. So let me do that. I'll just call this part 2. Cool. And of course it's upset. Of course it's upset. Hip. I'll just I can just copy that over actually. Yeah, let me do that. That'll be the easiest thing to do here. So we'll just grab this and copy it over so that when I update that, we should be okay. All right, great. There we go. So what I think I'm going to do first of all, oh, cool. Thank you. Thank you, SVA. Very nice to have you on the stream this evening. I'm going to mute my Discord here. And stop that. There we go. All right. Yeah, so what I think I want to do is set this up in a way that we have, I'm going to change the background here as well, maybe to the dark gray. So I want some fluid to kind of hit this and run off of it. Let me see where the logo is here, like that. Okay, so it's going to be in that position. Cool. All right, so that is the logo position. I don't think I actually set up a camera here, did I? No. So I'm just going to set a camera up just so we can kind of have some sort of a locked frame of reference here. So there we go. Something like that. Actually, let's go back this way a little bit. Cool. Okay, that looks good. We'll just use that for right now. I'm going to unlock that. And okay, great. So what I think I want to do here is tip this a bit so that the fluid is going to kind of run off of it. So I think at this stage here would be the best spot to do that. I think so. The only bad thing there is that we're going to, oh, never mind. I know what I can do. I'm going to do a little trick here, and then I think that will help us out. So we've got this attribute remap here. I don't think there's anything that we are, yeah, there's nothing that we're pulling from outside of here per se. I mean, there is some solver stuff happening inside of here. But the good thing about this is that we're using just attributes that exist on the geometry to trigger things based on time inside of here. So that's why I can do what I'm about to do in a second here. Okay, so I'm gonna do a Vellum pack. I think this will be the easiest way to do this. Oh, I don't think I need this anymore. I'll just get rid of that. I don't think we need that. So I'm going to put this in here and our constraints in here. So what I'm doing is I'm going to pack all of our geometry into one stream. And I'm going to transform that. So let's do it maybe a, I don't know, what do we got here in the X? Let's do maybe like a 30-degree tilt. I don't know, something like that. Maybe we'll do 40 just to see how it goes. So now we've tilted this geometry. We can do a Vellum unpack. just going to move this down. I'm holding control while I do that, and that helps to shift everything. And let's wire these in. So this goes here, that goes there. This last wire in this stream is just the collision geometry, and we can see that there is no collision geometry anyways, so kind of doesn't really matter at all in this case. So now if we take a look at this whole thing is going to simulate kind of like this on its side, and it's going to be a little different. Let's see here. Oh, you know what? I turned it the wrong way. That's okay. Let me just look at this again because I wasn't thinking straight here. So if I do camera like that, so we actually don't want it to be in the X or the Z. I'm going to just cancel that out. I want it to be like that. And let's lock this down again. And maybe just pull it back a little like that. Cool. Okay. My mistake. Let's start that again. So now this should be tilted to the camera, and it should be blowing to the right and up. So it still looks like we're getting kind of what we want here. So that's cool. And then everything should start snapping in at around frame 24. So that's cool. And it's going to all kind of pin into place. Let's see how this looks here. It doesn't look bad. So I think what we're going to do is let this go for a little bit. Kind of as far as like the sim goes. And what I'm going to do is turn down the resolution a little here. So let's turn this down to something like that, 0.2. What this is just setting the resolution of this planar patch that we're going to be kind of simulating everything on. So there, that was what we were at, 0.1. Oh, it's actually still updating. Yeah, there you go, 0.1. So you can see that this is quite a bit denser, and we're going to go to 0.02. And that'll give us a bit looser of a resolution. There's still everything's going to be transferred over and should work just fine. So let's take a look at this, and this should sim a bit quicker as well. There we go. So this will just give us a little bit more real-time feedback, I guess you could say. Not quite real-time, but it'll give us just a little bit better feedback time to be able to see how this all works. And it should relatively work the same. I mean, you're going to get a little bit bigger folds in the fabric here, but this should all be pretty similar. You just don't get quite as high detail, obviously, out of your simulation, but I think we'll be okay for right now. So what I want to start doing, I think, is maybe around, I don't know, maybe around this point here. So maybe we'll say around frame 90, we can start doing some fluid like emission here. So maybe we'll start with like an emitter over here and move across it. So let's try that. This is going to be a little bit of a different, stream of geometry that we're going to be working with here. Yeah, I'm just curious if I'm missing any chats here, because I feel like, nope, everybody's been very quiet here. Not been a lot of, hey Epoxia, how's it going? It's been a quiet evening. Nice to have you. I've had 2 chats, so I'm just making sure everything is still running. I mean, I don't mind doing this, but also it's just with nobody here. But sometimes it's just a little weird to be like, nobody's saying anything. Usually everybody just, oh hey, hello. There we go. Starting to have some comments. Cool. Anyways, so let's start it over here, and we're gonna move it across to the other side. So let's do a box. I think that seems fine. We will just kind of set this up to be a little bit of a different shape here. You know, as I'm saying this, like, oh yeah, nobody's like really talking. Also thinking about, hello again. I was just thinking, it's actually starting to be summer. So yeah, people probably are going to be away doing things and not watching streams, and like me being a weird person sitting here doing stuff inside all day. So yeah, people have things to do. Okay, so let's keep that as like our emitter source for right now, just to make sure we've got everything working. Yeah, that should be good. Maybe we'll bring it up a little bit higher. So let's do a Vellum configure fluid. We'll wire that in there. Oh yeah, we're compiling here. Oh, interesting. Yeah. So sometimes you'll find this with nodes that use like an OpenCL process inside of them. Sometimes you'll notice that there's that little bit of startup time there. And at this point, we shouldn't see anything more from there. So if we do anything from here, we shouldn't see like startup times or anything like that if you use this node and change attributes in it and things like that. So, okay, so there's our particles. So that's cool. Physical attributes. Let's give it, I want to give this a little bit of viscosity. So maybe like 10, I don't know. Surface tension, we'll leave that. I actually don't want to display it as spheres. We'll just keep them as points. I don't mind that. Let's see here. Oops. I don't need to use convex hull. Yeah, let's just do a regular grid, and I think, yeah, I'm gonna change the seed every frame, just to so it's a little bit more random like that. Cool. All right, so let's just try this out first and kind of see where we get with this. So there's our fluid. Let's give this some velocity noise. So let's do an attribute adjust vector. I tend to like this for doing some nice little vector noise here. So let's turn on our trails. And actually, you know what? Let's not do that. Let's grab I here and turn on V. And now if we see this, we'll say set always. We'll do noise. Excuse me. Now we can see these vectors a little bit better. Sometimes those trails are a little hard to see. I am going to turn the guides down. So let's just go in here, and I'm just going to change the length of them a little bit here. So maybe something like that. Cool. And let's see here. I want these fairly, I don't want it too noisy, right? Like I don't want it super crazy. So let's just give it a little bit of something. And amplitude is fine. Let's do 0 centered. And we could maybe even give this, oh, actually, you know what? Actually, a better one would be to use the point velocity, I think. Because this will give us a couple other options as well, not on the constraints, but on the geometry. Sorry, let me zoom in a little more. So there we go. So let's do that. Let's say keep incoming. Let's say add velocity. We can do this in a direction, so maybe a little bit like that. We'll give it that direction. Then we can add some curl noise into this, and we can change all sorts of different properties of this. So let's see how that looks. Maybe 0.25. Let's just play this back and see what's going on there. Cool. Looks pretty good. Actually, you know what? That's too much. Let's turn the scale down a little bit here. So it's just adding a little bit of curl noise into it. Maybe we adjust the swirl size just a little bit here. And you know what we could actually do is, just to make this a little less jittery and weird, we can just do that. That'll allow us to see it a little bit better for right now. Okay. So what you were seeing before there is as we change the scale of this, it's going to want to go in a bunch of random directions. So I'm just going to, I'll just play around with it a little bit. Maybe that's right. Maybe something like that. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, cool. So there's our point velocities. I don't even know if we have any constraints here, but that's okay. Let's just put a couple nulls down here. So here is our geo. We'll say fluid geo. What version of Houdini am I using? I am using Houdini 20 currently. Any reason you ask? Just curious, I guess. Welcome to the stream. Vitas? I don't know if I said that right, but I'll just say it in some way the best I can. All right, so let's come inside of here and we'll move this over. Here's our sources. And let's do this. Cool. I got pretty close. Good. There we go. And let's do a Vellum source here. Hit R and just resort those inputs. So let's just grab our SOP path here. First of all, we're going to use fluid geo and constraint path, fluid constraints. Like I said, I don't really actually think that there's any major constraints that we need to worry about, but that's okay. We've got this, and what we will see here is hopefully, yep, if we come back up here, we should see that sure enough, we have some fluid in here. And if we hit play here, we should see everything start to do its thing. Now we've got some fluid and it's it's blowing around. Interesting. Wasn't thinking about the fact that it was going to be affected by that wind, and it is too it is too late. So let me just see here. Could I change? Okay, hold on. I'm going to turn that off. See how that works, because the wind shouldn't be affecting the mass of our fluid too much, and somehow that's worse. Interesting. Okay. What I'm going to do is I am going to have these winds only affect the cloth. So let's do that. I think that'll be safer for us. So, let's see here. We're going to say fluid. So the reason I'm going to name this fluid is because this is going to give us the patch name of fluid. So when I come up here, look at my group, I should see stream fluid and stream default source. So we're just going to click on default source for these and do it like that. And that should only affect our cloth now. So let's do this. And sure enough, I think that should be working. Now, I probably pushed it too far in one direction. And do we have any wind set up in here? No, but also the gravity is very low in this simulation. So let's think about that a little bit. How can we make this work? All right, so what I need to do is probably turn this whole thing quite a bit down. So let's say 0.1 for the velocity to begin with. So just a little bit in that direction. And then our curl noise, we'll say 0.05. That'll just give it a very small amount of like nudge in that direction. So we could actually probably even turn these velocities up a little bit just so we can see them a little better. There we go. All right, cool. So let's try that. Let's see how that works. No, thank you. All right, let's go back here and let's see what we get. Yeah, it's taking a little too long to fall. Let's see here. Can we do a pop? Just a pop force. Yep, I think what we could do here is just give this a little bit more. Hey, Zach. Another Zach. Second Zach. All right, so what I'm going to do, yeah, glad you could catch it live as well. So let's do this. Let's say negative. What is the gravity set to right now? And by default, this is, yep, 9.8. Okay. Wow, that's really low. No wonder. So let's say we'll do this -5. Try not to make it too crazy. And this will only affect the fluid. So let's try that. See what that does for us here. It threw all the fluid out. That's great. Okay, so at least we've got the fluid interacting, so that's good. And now we can control a little bit of what's going on here between these different forces. So this obviously is a huge cheat, right? Like we're not accurately doing fluid and cloth and all that stuff. So this again kind of speaks to what you might want to do in Houdini sometimes, which is create these more interesting setups that really can't be, maybe couldn't be done otherwise, that you're getting these really, it's so funny looking. You're getting these like unique effects and things like that are just a bit different than what you could do otherwise, where you can have these mixed forces and gravity only affecting certain things and all that type of stuff. So just something to keep in mind as we're looking at this. So it looks like we're starting to get somewhere with this, so that's good. Let's do this. Let's change our seed again to $F, so we're getting a bit of animation there. And let's go back into our Vellum solver. Let's grab this source, and let's go from this to say only once. Let's say each substep. That should emit a good amount of fluid into this. And we'll start to get this emitter going here. And we'll see that kind of pouring fluid into this. And we'll probably want to set up a couple of like kill conditions for how this is going to work, basically. And you can see here that probably our density is going to be a little bit too high. And now it's also kind of overcoming this, right, with this logo kind of getting pulled up like that. So the reason, obviously, that is kind of exploding like that is because we've got this thing falling down, and then that's pushing it back up. So again, we said we probably want to start this around frame 90. So let's do that. So let's come in here. We'll say activation $F greater than 90. It's just a simple way of setting the activation of this emitter. Basically just giving it a comparison, and that will allow us to set that up to only emit once we get past frame 90. So now we're not dealing with all of this like kind of jerky behavior at the very beginning of it, right? We don't have to worry about that fluid kind of gathering in some of these different spots. And now it should start emitting any frame here. Let's see, 90. There we go. So now we're going to start emitting that fluid into this simulation. And so we shouldn't see too much weird like bouncing and things like that going forward. So let's see what happens here. Now, the only problem that we're probably going to run into as well, or not the only problem, but one of the problems we're going to run into is that this is going to not want to catch on this part of the logo, because it's going to be adding weight to it there and sort of, collecting around this cloth. So I think what we're going to want to do here, and maybe we should turn the viscosity down as well, because it feels like the viscosity is maybe just too high. So let's do that. Let's set that back to maybe 1. Calculate the mass based on that. I might want to turn the density down a little bit as well, just so that it's not going to pull it quite so much. So maybe we'll do this at like 250. I don't want this to pull way crazy amount. So let's just kind of see what we run into here. So there we go. Let's do that. Also, I think I want to aim that a little bit better. Put that a little bit more over top of the logo so that it can kind of hit that and sort of roll down a little bit more than it currently is. So we'll see how this works. I think another thing we could possibly do is maybe up the mass a little bit of the cloth so that it's not being so heavily displaced by the fluid. But obviously you can see here we're starting to get some sort of, interaction basically going on here, which is cool, obviously. Like that's I think part of the beauty of this vellum fluid is that we can get this kind of two-way interaction with the cloth without having to do too much craziness, right? Like we're going to have to do some control of it, and it's not going to be, quite a flip simulation, but we are going to get some fluid working here without having to do anything really that crazy here. And as I'm kind of thinking about this, maybe what would be a better way of doing this as well would be to have this kind of this fluid spraying instead of dropping from the top like this, maybe having it go across the front. I don't know. Another thing too is we can use our traditional pop tools here to do some interesting stuff. Like we could, let's see, where's our camera set up here? We could set it up to have a pop kill. And we could give some different parameters to that. It's probably not going to be too much right now to worry about, but that certainly would be something you could do and kill particles outside of a certain area. Maybe as they get low enough here, maybe then we kill them. Yeah. So anyways, we'll take a look at that, but I don't think this fluid is going to get much lower than that anyways. So I think we're okay right now. But we can always set this up and see, where this bounding area is. Oh, right. It's very small in here, isn't it? No. There we go. Enable. There we go. Okay. So, what we could do is just set this a bit wider in the x-axis. There we go. So we could set this like 10 and maybe 10 here, and then lower it down to, I don't know, -5 maybe? I don't know. Yeah, something like that. Maybe we'll do 15 by 15 and just give ourselves a little area where it'll remove those particles from the simulation if they go low enough, just so they're not kind of going on forever. So yeah, let's try this instead. Let's take this box. Let's move it over here maybe. And let's have this maybe spray at the front of this thing here, this logo that we're setting up. So let's do that. Let's see, how is this going to look? Maybe we'll just move it back over here. So it's like coming from off camera, but it may be in front of us. And then we can have it spray forward. So let's do that. Okay, so here's our point velocity. Let's take a look at where this simulation is there. Okay, cool. So So let's turn this on. We'll have it go the other direction. So we'll have it maybe go -1, and maybe that's too much. Maybe -0.75. Let's try -1. Let's try. So we'll have it go like that. It'll spray this direction with a little bit of noise. Let's see what that looks like there. Give that a little bit more noise. Cool. Okay. That should be good. We'll see how it goes, but that'll be some noise in that direction. Let's change this back though one more time here. We'll go inside and change our fluid back from this activation. We'll just say delete channels and set it to 1 just for right now, so we can see sort of where this is going from the very beginning. Just gonna turn that off. Curious where this is gonna hit. Actually pretty darn good. That's not bad. That's looking pretty good. It's gonna hit right in the middle there. Oh, I'm like, what is it doing? I see. I have this on. Thought I was losing my mind for a second there. It's like, why is that not colliding? Okay, so it's looks like it's going in relatively the right spot, so that's good. So let's see here. We'll just change this back to the same thing we had it at before. Cool. And then we'll start this up. And now we should get to that spot where it's, kind of pinning itself down. And then shortly thereafter, we should start to see the fluid coming in, and maybe we need that a little sooner because we actually want it to probably start. Let's do it at 60 instead because I want it a little earlier. Let's do this 60. All right, so let's see that. Yeah, that should work because now we're going to get this fluid kind of coming out and hitting the logo, and should hopefully splash a little bit. We'll get some hopefully interesting interactions here. Let's see. That's kind of cool. Getting some cool stuff going on there. I might give it a little bit more force so that it's going to hit a little higher here. So let's try that. Yeah, it does. It is looking pretty nice. I agree. Thanks, Zach. I think this also sort of goes to illustrate some of the usefulness of vellum fluids, honestly, because a lot of times we default to flip for anything fluid, right? And rightfully so. Flip is a great solver for a lot of like large scale stuff. But when you're getting into these maybe smaller scale situations, I think it can be really advantageous to have something. That's a little too high. That's okay. I almost got it. It's like making a little pocket up there. It can be really advantageous to have these, to just even the fact that it's going to be this bidirectional kind of influence, right? Like that things are going to interact in this kind of coupled simulation is really, really beneficial. And for smaller scale splashes and things like that, this is really going to be pretty nice. I mean, you get some really nice sort of surface tension and viscosity that you can set up. So it's starting to get somewhere kind of interesting. I'm going to give that just a little less force. We can just take a look at that and see what it looks like as it's doing its thing. It's going just a little too high there, but the splashes are fun. We're just really not getting a lot of contact on the actual logo itself, which is what I would ultimately want to have. So let's take a look at that. And let's turn it down just a little bit. And remember, all I'm doing here is adjusting some point velocities, right? This is not, let's say 1.6. This is not, where we've got some sort of volumetric anything that we have to do. We don't have to deal with anything with sourcing or anything really special. We're just adding some velocity point positions. And man, I just slammed my knee onto this keyboard thing underneath our desk. Darn it, that hurt. Shoot. So it's just point positions and velocities and things like that. So you really get the benefit of that when you're working with Vellum, right? It's inherently solving for these kind of point constraints or these point positions and the attributes that are on them. So yeah, I think this is going to be what we want. We're going to get some interesting splashes here as this thing kind of forms. But yeah, kind of crazy, kind of fun looking. Actually, what I might want to do as well is, can I wasn't sure if there was something that output the speed basically, but I can do that real quick actually. I just would like to see this visualized a little bit better. So let's just do a point velocity again. I think we can just do keep incoming, but calculate the speed here. And then we can visualize that. So let's see here. Speed, there we go. If we turn this on, turn off V, and just calculate that for the, what is the group that we're looking for here? I think it's just stream fluid. So we'll say stream fluid. There we go. And let's do this. Let's say auto. No, that's fine. We'll do minute max. Give this like 5. No, like 2. And then we'll just give this the old whitewater coloring here. And that should be kind of neat. Give us a little bit better visual of this. See what these fluid particles kind of look like as they come out. Something we're a little bit maybe more used to seeing is the fluid looking like that. Oh, another thing I could have actually done is instead of visualizing it like this, I could just do could do a color and actually just put down the color here. So I could say ramp from attribute, we can do speed, and we can give everything else color white up here. So we'll do that as white. Then down here we'll get speed, but it should only be, that's interesting. Right, it's overwriting it. It's all right, whatever. But yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter. Sorry, I'm thinking something else was going to work there, but it doesn't. But anyways, let's just keep going here and just see sort of what is happening. creating some interesting little splashes and things like that. I think after a while, we're going to want to cut that off. So now the only bad thing about this that I don't love is that it's really over, it's going over top of this, the simulation before we see it. So maybe we're going to want this after the logo forms. Hey Goldie, welcome to the stream. So I think what we're going to want to do here is instead of doing this once in the middle of the logo and like doing its thing, maybe we'll do it at the end of it, right? So let's see how we could do that. Oh, thanks. Well, that's what I'm here for, is to try to help everybody just learn Houdini. That's the fun. It's fun. It's fun to learn. And yeah, it's really cool because I think the great thing about Houdini, just responding to Goldie's comment here in the chat. But yeah, the way you go about Houdini is really, it's really up to you, right? You've got so much flexibility. You've got a lot of options that you can make. There's some things that you have to do a certain way, but a lot of it is really open-ended and allows for a lot of different ways of solving these problems. So yeah, anyways, but yeah, hopefully I'll continue to do a good job of maybe explaining what I'm doing here as best I can. All right, so let me just look at this here and see. I'm going to just mute that for a second because I just want to see where this logo actually fully forms, because I don't want to overly complicate this visual here of the no problem. Yeah. I'm honestly, I'm just kind of, this is just stream of consciousness stuff, so glad to have you guys here. And yeah, if you learned something, that's awesome. And oftentimes I'll learn a lot from everybody, making comments and suggesting things as well. So I appreciate that as well. I've learned a lot from doing this. So yeah. All right. So it looks like it's actually a little bit later here. So maybe what we do is around 168. Yeah, Zach is asking if there's any issue with having this stopped attributes on the cloth. And so no, Zach, that it doesn't really make any difference. It's totally fine, honestly. What we're dealing with here is the attributes exist on the points, right? So just remember that when we're going into the solver, right? When we're putting our stuff in here, right? That is taking this initial state. Once we're inside of here, then things are manipulated. And here we have our fluid, right? So these two are different streams of data, but they're all working on the same information. I'm just kind of organizing myself a little bit here. But that stopped attribute is happening inside of the SOP solver. And it's actually, it's not even a stopped attribute. What we're doing is we're turning the mask to 0 and sticking it to the animation, gluing it to our animation. And so that is really what it is that we're actually setting here. And so when we do that, that is, sticking the logo down. And really we're only operating on these logo points, right? These pinned points, right? So we're only operating that one bit of code on these points here. So this is our logo group that we're creating. And those are that's the only part of this whole simulation that's getting affected by that solution that we're making. And once we do that little tweak inside of there where we're just basically having those points pinned to where they were originally and kind of snap back, once we've done that, the solver is fine with it. Basically, it just is like, okay, yep, these points are pinned in place. But beyond that, it doesn't have any reason to really, worry about that or anything like that. It really doesn't interfere with any of the other things that are happening in there. Just like with cloth, when you pin it down, right? It can still bump into it. It can still hit it. It can still do a whole bunch of different things, right? But only those points are the things that are really affecting it. So it's really just creating a constraint, sort of. It's not quite a constraint, but it's a quasi constraint because it's point based. It's not actually on the constraint geometry. But anyways, you can just remember that with this fluid coming in here, those are just points as well that have certain attributes on it, and the solver knows what to do with them because when those come in, those are going to be defined a bit differently as well. Because this phase is on here, that's how it knows that it's a fluid. I believe that tells it that it's a fluid when it's a phase like that. So since we have that attribute, when the solver sees that, okay, some of this geometry here, let's look at the geometry. Some of it here, so like if we do phase. Oh yeah, right. Nothing even has phase yet until we get, oh right, because I turned the fluid off, sorry. But if we had that on here, the other stuff would have probably a negative phase, which means it's not a fluid. So really the solver itself is just looking at these attributes. It's just looking at these parameters that, these things that we've set up, and is just doing its thing based on that. And so that allows everything to interact and collide with each other. Obviously those points aren't allowed to move that we're pinning in the fabric. So then the fluid is going to react to that as if it's almost like a collider, but it's not quite, because there's a little bit of give because we haven't pinned this whole thing down. So yeah, so anyways, that's that's not really, setting the mass to 0 doesn't mess with anything beyond just pinning it in place, more or less. So that is sort of its way of knowing that it's not. I think there is an attribute that would say, like, ignore collisions. I want to say there is an attribute like that would turn off collisions. I don't remember the name of it specifically, but in this case, turning the mass off is really just telling it to just ignore it. It's just, it can't move those points anymore. So those points are fixed in place. They are still colliding, but they're fixed in place because points are what we're colliding with here, right? There are, we can obviously have colliders and things like that work a little bit differently, but all the points are what's interacting together. So anyways, so that's, hopefully that gives you a little bit of a better sense of what it is. But you can always, maybe I did a few like more basic Vellum tutorials. You could always take a look at those and kind of see. I mean, those are, again, still a little, they're not like, hey, this is the whole book of how to work with Vellum. And in fact, if you do want a really great resource for how to work with Vellum, let's see here. If I bring this up, yep, that should work. Okay. So I'm just going to pull this up real quick. We'll go back to the Houdini thing here. And if you actually go down right from the front page, which I wouldn't say that people often do this, but if you go to this Vellum tab right here, or this Vellum thing, this is where all of the information I got for going through those like basic overviews of Vellum are from here. And you might think, well, this doesn't seem like all that much of, a crazy like difference between just looking at the help cards. It is. It's incredibly different. These are really, really nice. They've got all sorts of different, explanations of things like sliding constraints. You can go through a whole bunch of different things here, like Vellum fluid setups. These are like, there's like scenes you can load in here. So like, if you've never gone in here before, the documentation is so good. Like, it's ridiculous. So go in here, check stuff out. There's lots of great tutorials and little things like this. If you've watched any of my like basic Vellum stuff, this is exactly what I was pulling that from. And it's like, okay, yep, this is how you wire it in so that you've got it all set up like this. Anyways, it's really, really great. There's some cool tips and troubleshooting stuff in here. All sorts of really, really good stuff. So shout out to the docs team. If you haven't gone in there, yes, it's I've been suggesting to the documentation team that when you go into feel free to go in and put an RFE in for this, because I think this should be how it works. But when you go to the question mark here for a help card for a Vellum node, any type of Vellum node, Vellum constraints, whatever, there should be a big thing up at the top that says like, go to the Vellum documentations or something. Cause like, this is great, but this is written. So just a little behind the scenes thing. This is more written by, this is written by the documentation team as well, but a lot of this is done. Yeah, Joey. Hey, how's it going? I'm sorry. I'm Joey. I'm sorry I missed your Houdini battle. I was busy that day, but I should go back and watch it again. I've been meaning to, but welcome back. Joey was Joey intern. You were an intern with us, I think, not too long ago. But anyways, yeah. So I just, these are written by all this stuff down here is from the people that develop the nodes, make these help cards and things like that. And obviously I'm sure they get help from the docs team, but those other documentations are written completely by, yeah. Houdini battles are always unhinged, man. They get, it went, the trolls. I don't know what that means. Like, hopefully it wasn't like bad unhinged. Hopefully it was just weird, just craziness. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. But anyways, so there's actually like, we have a whole documentation team that writes these really great things. Like, there's so much stuff in here. So for example, one thing that I was really enjoyed was this whole feathers thing here is absolutely like just gold, man. If you want to learn about making feathers, holy crap, there's some good stuff in here. And somebody may have made some node reference videos down here as well. So if you want to watch those, that was part of what I did for the last launch. But anyways, the rest of this is all from the documentation team. Oh no, 4chan got the Zoom link. What does that mean? Oh no. That sounds so crazy. Oh, that sounds cringe. Well, I wonder if that recording will be online then if it got crazy. I'll have to talk to Deb about that. Okay, so a question here about this now that we got significantly off track. I'll try to get myself back on track here. So, Goldie Ames, whatever it is, Gold asked, in case you have a cloth part, oh my gosh, they had to kick everyone out and lock the Zoom. Oh my goodness, that's wild. That is absolutely wild. So Gold was asking, is it better if the cloth sim cache loaded and work just with the fluid on top? Yeah, you could do that, right? You could certainly do that. Now, the difference would be that you wouldn't get that two-way interaction. But if you wanted to do it that way, there's no reason that would be a problem. I mean, yeah, I'm like resimming it each time, so that kind of is kind of stupid. What I could do, if I was doing this in a little bit, if I was doing this strictly in DOPS, what I could do, if you haven't seen this before, there's a DOP in the DOP network. So if I had set this up from scratch, which I don't always like to do, you can actually start with an initial state. So what I could do, no, it's not ignorance. No, it's great. It's a great question. It certainly is something that if you were doing this on a really large scale, you would probably want to do that. So what you could do here is you could simulate your cloth, and you can actually get an initial state from it. So what you would do is you would write out these checkpoint files here. You'd save the checkpoints, and you would then load one of those checkpoints back in. You would load that in as the initial state, and then you could emit your fluid into that and see how it interacted. So that actually would retain that two-way coupling, but to do that here would actually be, I don't think that's easily gotten at here, because they don't really want that for this SOP level stuff. Like, that's not really the point of these SOP level tools. So, I mean, I could unlock this, could go inside. Don't do this. This is silly, but I could go inside, grab this, turn on the checkpoints, go back to the simulation, set an initial state. But like, that's kind of messy, right? Like that's not really what you want to do. So, yeah. Anyways, just something to maybe know about or be aware of. So you could do that, but in this case, I'm just gonna keep redoing it, which sucks, I guess, a little. Okay, so Zach asked something back a second ago, and I didn't get a chance to read it. Instance pack Vellum objects with unique names. Huge outdoor tent blowing over them, a ton of straps and curtains and such to duplicate over the sim. SimGeo and RenderGeo packed together. Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So basically Zach is saying that if he had something, let's say he had a whole bunch of these logos, maybe across a wide area, tents, whatever you want to say, how would you, how could you work with that in a more efficient manner? So this would be how you would do that, Zach, by using this Vellum pack, this Vellum unpack workflow. Now, I think what you would do, in your case, you would actually probably need to have another pack here as well, I think. I'm just trying to think about how this would work, because you kind of have two streams of geometry coming through here, right? So you would almost need to pack all of that together, then instance it around, unpack it, so you just have your pack geo and your what do you call it? Your kind of high res geo. And then you could do your simulation and use that to drive the deformation of your individual things. I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head. I mean, that I would say that using this packed situation is what you would want. And one thing to keep in mind here too is that once you instance that around, you can enforce these unique name attributes per instance and use that to your advantage. And then as you instance things around and maybe copy to points this onto a bunch of things, you can use that more efficiently. What I honestly would say is it might, yeah, that's a tricky one. If you have some concrete stuff that you're working on, Zach, feel free, and this I guess is a good segue for this. Feel free to go to HoudiniHangout.com for the Discord server invite, and you can jump on there. I don't know if you're on there or not, Zach. Don't recognize. It's always hard to know who's who on what thing and all this stuff. But yeah, go over there, and you could always upload some examples and things like that of like what it is you're working on if you're able to. If it's not like a oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I think that would be a better place to get people's feedback. I can't always jump in and answer things, but there are a lot of people that have been really helpful in there, and just a lot of smart folks that show up every once in a while. And so I'll jump in, give my 2 cents, and lots of other people in there as well. So yeah, hopefully that would be cool and helpful. Great. So here we are. We're working with this now. Let's get this thing back on track here. So we've got our cloth. This is all working and doing its thing. Actually, you know what I could probably do? Oh no, that I was thinking something else. Could I just? No, that doesn't work. Just thinking of if I could do something here, but no. Okay. Anyways, all right. So what I should actually do instead is I can just stop this thing from doing its whole process here of like wait, where is that it's doing the active frame here. There it is. Okay, active frame. Cool. So what we can do is just set the active frame of that. Let's do that again. Sorry. Attribute create. And we'll just say this is a float. The name is, I'm just going to set it so that it pins it all right from the start. and we can kind of cheat this a little bit again. I had this set up before. I should have just left it. We'll set that to be, actually, let's just set it to be 12. Turn this on here. This should be for the logo group. And if we look at this, oh, sorry, set that backwards. Should have value here. Let's say 12. There we go. Okay, cool. So now what we should have happen is at frame 12, they should all jump into place. Just, it's a little messy, but whatever. Should be fine. Oh, and the constraints are doing their thing too. Yes, what I could do is set that there, and then I could put, just thinking of some things to do here. We will set the, yes. So what we'll do is we'll set the active frame over here as well. And I can just add a little switch here like this, just to add a little bit in. We'll put this over the primitives. We'll turn this off, I think. Yep, that should be fine. Active frame is 12. Let's try that out. See if that works. I think it will. That's basically just our constraints. They were... Oh, I need to switch it. That's why. Probably need to switch it like that. Let's try that again. Yep. There we go. Perfect. So it's not quite accurate, but it's fine. That'll give us a better starting point for this. So we'll know that we need to change this to later in the simulation, but for now we can start this pretty much right away. So let's just delete this channel. Set this back to 1. All right. So I am just, I'm kind of just doing this quickly just to kind of get a sense for how this simulation is going to work. So this should all just snap into place now. Honestly, it'll do it probably before that fluid even gets there. Yep. There we go. So now we can get a better sense for how this will kind of play out right from the start. And so this is kind of a nice, easy way to get some of this feedback before we go too far with it. And yeah, this is starting to look kind of cool. So let's let that happen. As long as this looks good by maybe frame, I don't know, 120, then we can start building our little accumulation solver. For our wet map. Yeah, I think this is looking pretty good. Getting some splashes and some interesting stuff there. Let's just hit play here and we can take a look at this. Yeah, doing some cool stuff. All right. So I think that's good. Let's do that. All right. In fact, we could watch it like this too if we wanted to. Hey, Joey. Yeah, so Joey's asking about how do you like the fluid vellum interactions? I was thinking of using it in an upcoming project instead of separating the vellum and flipsims. Yeah, I think you can see right here that like I have a ton of control for how this is working. Now, if you're doing really large scale fluids, this is not the way you're going to want to go. That would be horrible. If you're doing small scale fluids, could be really good. Another thing to keep in mind is that this vellum fluid is naturally like what you would consider hydrophobic, right? So it naturally wants to kind of stay away from this thing. It doesn't want to be sticky. So some of that like surface tension type stuff that you get from maybe Flip or other methods of doing fluid simulations, you don't get with this. So just something to be aware of. It can be a little odd in the way that it behaves when it's got that type of collision. Now, in this case, I don't really want it to stick to the stuff. I want it to roll off. So in that case, it's kind of nice. But yeah, I think this is going to be fun. And we'll do a little wet map from it and then go from there. So, okay. So we've got that going. Here, Vellum post process. Not that that really is going to... That's just adding some more resolution into it. The only thing I'm realizing here that's kind of weird is that it actually can't deal with the fluids. So that's interesting. Interesting. Anyways, so yeah, you'd have to merge the fluid in separately for that, but that's okay. All right, so let's do this. Let's make a little solver down here for ourselves. And let's do a couple things as well. Let's add an attribute. And maybe we'll set that to just be... Yeah, I think if your project, Joey, is small scale, I think Vellum fluids might work really well for you, especially if you need to interact with cloth. The flip thing is going to be a pain. I don't even know, man, I don't even know how that would work. That would be really tough. Mostly because like in a case like this where you've got the fluid like building up in these little like pockets here, I don't know how you'd get that. I mean, I know there's a way to do it, but boy, that would be a real nightmare to have to deal with. So anyways, all right, so let's just call this attribute wet, and we are going to do this on the fluid. So the fluid will have wet. And let's just come down here. We can add wet in here. We should see that nothing is happening because I didn't set a value of 1. There we go. Gold is asking, I would like to learn motion graphics such as ESPN teasers. Think Houdini is the best way, right? So I think there's many different tools for doing many different things. I think if you're looking for really highly realistic, highly photorealistic, effects-based work, I think Houdini is a really great tool for that. I think if you're talking about more stylized stuff, that becomes a different conversation, I think, honestly. I mean, I think it's a great tool. I mean, I'm not going to say no, you shouldn't use it. Whether it's the best tool across the board, that's can be a tricky thing, right? I mean, would I say Houdini's the best tool for modeling? No. Would I say that it's a decent tool at modeling? Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And if you're doing procedural modeling, then yeah, maybe it is the best tool. But I think to say it's the best way to learn, like I learned Cinema 4D originally to do motion graphics, and I was able to take that a bit of a way through my journey. And the reason that I do Houdini today is because I got to the point where I kept hitting this technical wall inside of Cinema 4D that I was constantly hitting it and saying, somebody would ask me a question like, oh, I really want to do this. I really want to have this control. I want to be able to do this. I want to have this really specific thing happen to this fluid inside of here. Can we do this? And it's like, I can't do that within, well, first of all, you can't even do fluid sims really in cinema anyways, or maybe you can now. You'd need third-party stuff now. But anyways, at the time it was so limited. So that's why I ended up going to Houdini for a lot of this stuff. And this is 2016 for me when I started. So to say that it's the best tool across the board, I think would be a little disingenuous. I think if you're looking at stuff like what they've done, like what if you go back and watch Mark Fancher's when he joined me on here, he talked about his XFL, the production of that, and it was really, really good. It was super good. So if you want to see what he does with it and how he does that type of stuff, it's a great watch. I think it was actually a year ago now. It would have been May of 2023, I want to say. So like May 2023, if you go back, you should, in our videos, you should be able to see it. So yeah, anyways, that is what I would say about that. Carlos is asking, I think he said, will Houdini be the best tool for material authoring? Trying to think of how to answer that. Oh, epoxy. Did you work on that? I that never connected in my head. I think you did, right? I'll wait for your response. But Carlos, I am going to plead the fifth on that question. I have the right to remain silent, and I'm going to remain silent on that. Read into that whatever you will. Ask me about that in a couple weeks, maybe. Yeah. I mean, okay, so if we're talking about making textures and things like that, is a different thing than authoring materials. Oh, cool. Nice. Epoxy. That was a great spot. Very, very nice work. If you're talking about authoring materials in Solaris using Material X and stuff like that, I think it's really nice. And honestly, in Solaris, you can do, sorry, I'm just going to go back full screen here for a second because I'm just talking. So in Solaris, you can do a lot of really cool material authoring stuff. And so because of that, it gives you a lot of flexibility to work and do look dev and lighting and all that kind of stuff. I think the tools that you have at your disposal in there are really powerful. And you're not limited to one render engine, and there's a lot of options. And it depends on how people implement their stuff. But yeah, for a material authoring standpoint, like in Solaris, I think is awesome. I think it's really, really nice way of working. And I'm hoping that that's going to continually converge onto a more unified path forward for all of these materials, because at a certain point, right now, not every renderer defines their shaders the same way. But when you talk about reality, there is a reality, right? Like there is a reality to the world. And so I think what we're starting to realize is there should be a way to define that in a more global way across the board. That's sort of what Material X is hoping to do. And yes, there's always going to be problems with stuff, but I think the more we can converge on similar ways of looking at things, I think the better. And yeah, USD is great for that too. There's reasons why USD is crazy and it can be a pain, but I think there's so many nice benefits to USD, even if you're just using it as a file format. It's great, I think. But ignoring all of the collaboration stuff and all that type of thing. But anyways, so there you go. There's a little whatever. If you want to talk about texturing, talk amongst yourselves. I don't know anything about texturing. So anyways, all right. Sorry to be a little silly about that, but I'll just going to let that one be. All right. So we've got this going on here. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, USD Solaris is awesome once you get the hang of it. I think the cool thing too is that for a lot of things, you don't have to know anything about USD to use Solaris. So remember that too. Cool. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people have different varying levels of usefulness for the third-party renders, plugins, and things like that. But yeah, I think that is great. If you're enjoying that, I think the tools in Solaris plus third-party renders can be really, really nice. One thing I will say that is really actually epoxy? I have absolutely no idea. I do not know. Maybe. I think that, are you talking about an anisole epoxy? Because there is some sort of thing happening there. I'm not sure what that is specifically, actually. What is that going to be? There's going to be a, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe? I don't know. There's going to be character animation in 20.5 sneak peek tomorrow. I think that's what it looks like. But what that means for, I don't think that's anything beyond just, yes, Zach, you're right. There is the release stuff is next week. So I'm not sure what date this is on. 13th. Yeah. So tomorrow in Annecy, there'll be a little sneak peek, and then the actual presentation will be on June 19th. Yes. Sorry. Yeah, exactly. There's a thing in Annecy tomorrow. Yes, that is what you're thinking of. Yes. Cool. All right. So, let's get back to this. Let's get back to where we are. Man, I'm all over the place today. Sorry. Getting a little off track. All right. So now we have our wetness attribute. I think this will be the easiest thing to kind of think about. We're making an attribute on the fluid called wetness. Everything else is dry. And then what we can do is we could probably do this a couple different ways. Let's see. The default value is going to be 0. So let's do this. Let's do I don't know. I think I'm going to do it this way. Maybe there's a better way, but I'm just going to do it this way for right now. So let's split this apart. We're going to take the default source and keep it there. And this is going to send everything else out the other port. So now we can do an attribute transfer this way, maybe a little bit easier. So this is our geometry that we want the attribute to go onto, and this is where it's coming from. So we should just have our fluid on this side. If I'm understanding this correctly. Yep, there we go. So there's our fluid. And so this should be transferring over between the two. So let's turn this on. Let's see the wetness attribute. Let's get that going. And what we should be able to see here in a second, I think. Let's turn this on to wet. Yes, so it is actually fully on. I think. Yeah, there we go. So what we should be able to do is do this and have a little bit of a maybe blend width here as well. So maybe the distance threshold, we turn it down a little bit. Oh, that's a negative. I don't want negative value. So maybe something like that. Then we can kind of tweak this as well. And so what we're getting now is an attribute transfer between these two sources, right? So here's our particles. So I'm just going to control click this. If you've never done that before, that will actually keep this as like visible geometry. So if you just click it regularly, you get this kind of half visualized. Actually, that might be better, but this is like half visualized, is like templated. If you control click it, that's actually visualizing it as if the blue flag is on it. So you can actually move that around, have multiple things flagged like that. So little tip. So what we're seeing here is the transfer of this attribute from the fluid to the fabric. And as we play through this, we'll see that wherever that's close, we're going to get this attribute to go onto it like that, right? And so what we really want is for this to accumulate, right? We want this to accumulate on the fabric. So let's do a little accumulation solver. I think this should work. This should work just fine. All right, so let's add a solver here. I'm gonna grab this. I'll wire this into the cloth first. So that will be like this. So this is now a solver on that cloth. And we're going to put this second stream into here. And I am going to copy and paste this in. It should be fairly simple. We just want this previous frame here. We want input 2 there. This should work exactly the same, but should accumulate now. And there we go. We get an accumulation solver. Now, what you might want to do is not have it maybe so you know, on or off, I guess, basically. So maybe what we do is instead of having it be like 100% each time, maybe what we do is we take this value coming in here and we just do, let's do an attribute adjust, float. Easy enough to just do some math on it here. Let's take this and say wet. And we'll just say multiply, and we'll just scale this down maybe by half or something like that. Or maybe a quarter. I don't know. Let's just say it takes a few contacts for it to work. So now what we should see is that this will sort of like slowly build up in there, but it's just transferring. So that actually won't work, sorry. What we actually would need to do, now that I'm thinking of it, would be to do this slightly differently. So if we wanted it to accumulate like that, so this is just straight up transfer. So that's fine. So this is just, we just need to set up something that's a little, let's do a point pop here, and we'll just wire this up a little differently. So let's do a bind, and we will bind in wet, and we'll do a bind export, and this will be wet as well. Those are both floats, so wet and wet. There we go. So then if we get a sorry, I'm just thinking here. Oh, actually what we could do, instead of doing this, here, we could do this. So we could take this, transfer the wet, and we could actually put this into the, sorry, just thinking. Could we, yes. So what we could do here is now we could take the, so we could do a point, import point attribute. So we can grab that from the second input. So we'll just do that. You could also do second input here. It's actually maybe easier to understand. So let's grab wet from the second input, and we'll just grab it, since it's matching geometry going into both of these, right? This is the previous frame here. This is the transferred frame there. Since we have the same geometry in both of these streams, we can just match up the point numbers and it'll be fine. So we're just going to import that point number. And then what we can do here is we can just do an add these two results. We can say result plus the original wet. So this is the wet that's coming in from there. Oh, sorry. This should be a float. That's why. That's why it's yelling at me. I was trying to understand that. So we could do this, and we could also do a multiply here and promote this parameter and just say wetness scale. So now up here, we've got a wetness scale. We can just do that at a quarter. So now this is going to add these two together with a little multiplier in there. And we should be able to come up here and see that in action. Hopefully that should work. Yeah, there we go. And is that... Interesting. Are we getting that? I'm not sure why that's going away. There's something I'm doing wrong there. Why is that going away? Maybe it shouldn't be. Not sure why that's going away. Why is that? Oh, the fabric's not animating. Why is it not animating? What's going on here? Sorry. Just reset that. Nope. What is it doing? Why is it doing that? Thinking of something wrong here. I don't know why I'm. Right. Right. Yeah. That is true. So what I want to do is I did that the wrong way. So I want this to transfer like that. So if I do this, this will actually play the animation and transfer it, right? And then what we want to do is have it add those two together. Right. Thank you. Thank you, SVA. My brain was not working. So let's change this around a little bit. So we want to bring in the wet and add it in. Yep, we're going to do a couple things here. So we want to bring in, let's do another point pop here. So this, we want to take that and then add the wetness onto here from that. Actually, we could just use this and then do that. And that would accumulate it as well, I think. Previous frame is going to be here. Multiplying it, adding it in. Why is that not accumulating? I'm missing something. My brain's not working right now. Yes, I do know that, Carlos, that you can stream through X. I will call it Twitter. But Yeah, I don't know. I haven't done that before. I don't know why. Yeah, what is it doing here? Okay, so that's transferring it over. That's great. And then the previous frame here should be able to just, let's see. So let's get the wet value here. Wet, second input, float. Hello, and Polygon, welcome, welcome. Oh, no problem. Hey, I'm just a guy that likes to chat about Houdini, so no worries. Glad to be able to help. Okay, so one thing I should do here too is do a clamp to 0 and 1. I don't want it to go above 0 and I don't want it to go below 1. Or above 1 and below 0. So wet and importing the second wet, adding those together, clamping. That should work. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. Something that was really weird. I don't know why that was happening. Yeah, there we go. We're getting there. Getting there. Let's take a look at scaling this a little bit here. So I'm just going to name these so I can keep track of them. So this is so we'll see. Okay, that'll help me know what the heck I'm doing here. So let's let's do this. Let's do a multiply here. Let's do the same thing we did before. So we'll multiply, promote that parameter, call this wetness scale, go up here, and we'll just say 0.25. Let's try that out. Yep, that looks right. Cool. Okay. So let me just get rid of that. Say add wet to previous frame, just so we know what is going on here. All right, cool. And we can rearrange these actually. So we could do this and this just to make this maybe a little less convoluted. Input 1 and 2. Here's our previous frame. Great. So now we have this sort of situation going on here where we've got we're adding our wet attribute in there. And let's maybe even turn this down a little more. Maybe we can get a little bit slower wetness map going on here to kind of spread across it. Kind of interesting. Cool. And what I'm going to do is, let's see here. How can I do this? I want to... I want to color this properly. Oh, I got to look up my colors. Don't remember. Oh, excuse me. Pardon me. All right, I'm just going to look up my... Can you tell I used to like to do graphics stuff? I made this for myself. I'm so weird. Anyways, let's see here. I need my color palette, and we will color these things. These are the orange, and these two are blue. Okay, cool. So let's take this here. I know what I'm going to need to do. Take these over here, remesh this, and we're going to color those so that I can transfer all of those colors across. So we're going to do that. So we're going to add in another attribute transfer because I want these colors to appear. And I'm not going to call this... yeah, let's do that. Let's do an attribute adjust color because I can rename the color right there. So this is going to be, I'm going to call this rest CD. Well, let's just call it CD for right now, and then we can go for the rest part. All right, so my orange color is F27A00. Boy, that does not look right. There it is. That's right. Whatever. And then let's just select those two. Actually, what I'll do is I'll just group a couple groups just in case I need it. Probably don't, but that's okay. Let's say these two are the group, and that's going to be orange. And then we'll call this one blue. Select these two there. Oh, Zach, sorry, I missed that. If you wanted this wetness map to expand, that would just be an attribute blur inside the solver. Yeah, you could do that. You could also adjust. So if I wanted that to be the case, I could come in here and I could tweak some of these things. Like I could double the width or the distance there. So like as we play this back, now this is simulating and doing the wet map thing. So give it a second. Yeah, so if we look at this here, we can spread it, we can feather it, we can do all that kind of stuff. Could you use shallow water for this kind of thing? That's an interesting question. Maybe, but the shallow water solver works on height fields. So I don't think that would probably be the best way to do it, but could you do it? Yes, I'm sure you could. You could do anything in Houdini usually. The question is, should you do it? I don't know. I would. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. But all right. So let me just do this here. So this is going to be the blue group. This is going to be orange, blue. Let me me just see what the blue number is here. D, F, E. Whoa, that is a weird thing that's happening. Whoa. Hello? That's a bug. Something's weird. Something weird's going on there. What is happening? I didn't set the blue ones properly. There we go. Okay, so we've got those set. Great. Let's just select both of these and let's call this rest CD. The reason is I don't want this to be colored. I want to have this appear. So we'll do another attribute transfer like so. And we can just do rest CD, turn this off. And let's see if we can visualize it. What was that? Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. Yes. An attribute blur would spread it. Yes, exactly. Yes. Sorry. I misunderstood the question. Yep. That is true. Yes. Yeah, exactly. If you blurred that, it would do that. Thanks for getting me on track there. Nth polygon. There we go. Something like that would be good. So the reason that this is only showing up like this is because I'm just visualizing it using that rest CD. So now as we take this and simulate it through here, do this thing. We can then take the wetness value and multiply it by the rest CD to maybe bring out that color as it hits. So let's try that real quick. Let's come down here. So we've got that splashing around now. Cool. Just look at it from there maybe. And now let's do another point pop. I could do this in a angle too, but I'm just trying to make it so that, you know, if you're a little newer here, you're not too rough a shape where you have to learn Vex as well. So let's do this. Let's come in here, and we have a couple of different things. We should have rest CD. I'm just filtering the geometry spreadsheet here so that we can see what's going on. Rest CD, we have wetness. So there, cool. So what we should be able to do, let's see here. Is maybe we can do a blend. No, that's not what I want. Mix, color mix. Okay, so our primary color will be white. Our secondary color can be we'll bind in our rest CD. What's the reason you want to see these attributes listed? Well, because within Houdini, attributes is kind of the whole name of the game. If you're interested in doing cloth and doing all that kind of stuff, you set attributes on these points, right? So I'm looking at my point attributes right now. So that's why. So here, like this, I mean, that is a bit too much. These are all the simulation attributes coming out. You might want to use those for something. But now I just want to see a couple that I'm really specifically interested in. So that's why I'm filtering them that way. All right, so our rest CD is going to be our secondary color. So we'll wire this in. And then our bias is going to be bind. We're going to bind in our wetness. And whenever I use these binds, that's kind of like an import, but it's taking an attribute that's on the geometry and bringing it in, right? And since we're working on, since this is a point VOP here, this is pulling in these point attributes from the geometry. Yeah, no problem, Gold. Happy to help. So let's do this for bias. So this should be saying how those are going to mix. And then the output here, we can just wire right into CD because that's one of the default things that are happening. And why is that black? Why is that black? Maybe the bias needs to go the other way. Oh, shoot. I went too far. Well, I'll let that simulate for a second. Probably need the bias to go. Yeah, probably needs to go the other way. Let's try that because the rest CD is probably 0 for some of these, I think. I'm just going to hit escape here. Maybe I'm using the wrong one. Maybe you want to use mix. Oh, I know why. Because I didn't do this right. This needs to be a vector. There we go. That explains why it's not working. Because you're not importing a vector. So, okay, that's always important. So that's why we don't need to worry about that. Cool. All right. So now we should be seeing this working. Yeah, cool. It's doing it. So if we watch it like this, we'll see that the water is going to start to color that simulation. So that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty fun. And so kind of snaps into place. Now that obviously is not going to be the animation, but I think we're thanks, SVA. I didn't see your message, but yes, you nailed it. Yeah, I think this is working. This is kind of doing exactly what I was wanting for it to do. Cool. So let's try this. Let's turn that off after 96 in the simulation here. So we've got, get out of the way here. There we go. All right, so we've got the activation. Let's just say F is less than 96. Oh, sorry. $F. $F is just a variable that allows us to to return the current frame number. So that's basically just doing, that's a way of writing an if statement in Houdini. So it's basically saying if the frame number is less than 96, have the activation on. Once it goes over 96, turn the activation off of the fluid. So let's see what happens here. I think we're getting pretty darn close here, so that's cool. Oh, right. I probably need that on so we can see the wetness. There we go. Or we could turn it off. We could just see the resulting color. Yeah, so this is more or less what I was hoping to get. Obviously, you can change the way that the fluid simulation works. There's so many parameters you could tweak and adjust and do all that kind of stuff with it. Um, and you could have it dry off if you wanted to. You could have it blur. You could have it. Usually, a drying would be where you would maybe subtract from the previous frame first. Subtract that attribute from the previous frame first, and then have that have that slowly decay, and then if it's not getting re-wet, it's going to slowly kind of dry off. So maybe you would take like a tenth or 5,000ths of a value each frame to like dry it off, type of a thing. Let's see here. So let's do that. And then why don't we take this and this? We can merge them back together down here. And we can see the whole situation. Let it finish its little sim here, and we can sort of let it do its thing. And I think what I would probably do if I was going to take this all the way to like a rendering step would be to, obviously this would be like some sort of a transparent liquid, so that as you see that color coming out, it would, it would show up, in the render. So it would kind of show through the liquid. That would be my thought. I also really love emissive things, so maybe I'd do it an emissive texture, but I'm kind of a nerd for glowy stuff like that. I love that. But yeah, we'll let this do its thing, and you can sort of, I think it's cool, like we're getting it flowing through the creases like that, and as the wind is blowing around, it's doing some different things. It's kind of neat. Yeah, you can mesh. You could mesh the vellum fluid that way. It would be, it should work. It should work with that. Let me see just how that would look. I mean, this is too low of resolution. I would obviously up that. I think you would need to set this to be this. I think copy this parameter. Paste relative references. Yeah, there you go. And you would need to set. Ooh, Zach, that's a good question. I want to say maybe that would need to go up a little bit. Yeah, probably something like that. Let's see what that looks like compared to the particles. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going to tweak a couple things here. I am not a fluid expert by any means. But I've seen some of these things like limiting the refinement and changing the voxel scale. Let's see here with this. Yeah, that seems actually more accurate for how it should probably be. Let's see here. Yeah. Okay, so Zach is asking, for a sim like this, do you have a standard particle count you use to get a good fluid mesh? I don't have like it really is more of like an inkling, right? Like if you took, usually what I look at is this, if I'm doing flip, I look at the surface quality, right? And kind of try to get a sense from that. And if that starts to like look decent, that means that you're, if you're looking at just like the raw surface and seeing kind of how that looks, when that starts to get closer to like an actual, not a correct fluid, but starting to look a bit closer to what a fluid should look like and not be all like tweaky and chunky and weird, then you start to know that you're getting closer to that, because the particle number is going to be, the particle count is going to be much, if you're meshing that, it's going to be much higher. But I think it's really just an instinct thing. It's hard for me to really even say, because I'm not a fluid person. Like if I was doing it, I would probably just look at, like when you're out like this, it's like, oh yeah, that could be kind of cool, right? Yeah, I mean, 300,000 is tough. I mean, it's like, I don't think it's like a set number. It's more about knowing the density of this. Like, right? Like, look at this. Like, the fact that I get in, it also depends on how close you're going to be. If you're back here, like, yeah, maybe that's a pretty good amount, right? Maybe you would take your, what's our thing at here? Maybe it's at 0.01. Maybe it goes 0.005, right? But when you get in here and you start to look at this and you start to see how much space is between these points, just remember that it's basically looking at this and trying to say, where is the surface of these points, right? Where is this, where can I, where are these connected? How should they be? Like, how should these random points here be connected together? The more points you have, the better it's going to be. But I mean, if you're getting into millions of points, you're definitely, with Vellum especially, you're going to be hurting at the simulation step pretty quickly, I think. I don't know what this gets up to. That's interesting. It must have like a reseeding built into it. I don't even think I realized that it has a reseeding value. Let me just see here. Be under advanced, probably under fluids. I don't know. Oh, I was going to turn this on anyways. I wanted to see this. So spatial sort interval will sort your particles based on where they are. Does this actually work with this? I think it should. Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure. I thought that would work here, but what I think it'll do is it'll actually resort your point count, possibly. Not sure. But I think what it does is it resorts the points spatially so that you get a better speed for your solve every 20 frames. So let's see. And I think what it's doing is it's basically seeing what particles are close to each other physically in space, and using that to try to get them closer in memory, I think is what it is. I think that's how it works. But anyways, not sure if that would help you or not, but I just figured to check it on to see if it did anything useful. Yeah, so let's do this. I've got a couple minutes before I want to maybe start wrapping everything up. So let's do this. Let's do 0.05. Let's see what this starts to look like. See, the interesting thing here is that this fluid density has literally no bearing on this cloth, right? And really the collision is between, oh, what is happening there? We got some weird behavior. Oh, it's just, what happened there? It's just that I'm emitting from a square, and so it's like jittering a little bit. Yeah, you could fix that. How do you fix that? Is it in here? I think it's just the substepping of it and like the velocities and things like that. And and just how I built this little block. I think that's what you're seeing there. So you might want to add, you probably would need to add some sub-steps to this to make it work better. But anyways, let's just up this and see kind of what it looks like. And then we can take a look at the particle fluid surface. Yeah, maybe, but also when you don't have it jittering at the source, I mean, yeah, it could certainly be that. I'm not saying it's not that, but I always feel like you get a little bit of a better fluid, a better emission when you do have that jittering. But yeah, it's possible. It could be that too. But let's let this go for a second here. I mean, it could be. I'm not saying that it isn't. Sorry, I didn't mean to shoot you down like that. But it could be that. Could be the velocities that we're putting into it. Could be a little bit too regular and causing some weird stuttering there. There's a few things that it could be. We also don't have this solver at a very high substep. We have 2, just like not that much. I didn't really go too crazy with this. All right, let's look at this and see what we've got going on here. So already when we get in here, we can see that this is quite a bit denser, right? If we look at this stream here, over here, we can see how much more dense this fluid is, right? And if we look at this particle fluid surface here and let this do its thing, we're going to get a much nicer mesh, right? I actually sometimes think that the adaptivity can actually create some weird popping and things like that. Now it is nice to like lower your point count and stuff like that, but it's something to keep in mind, I guess, because you can actually sometimes see this adaptivity if you've got like on your mesh and stuff like that. It almost would, I feel like it almost would be better sometimes to just run like a really fine remesh on it or something like that to go from this sort of squared representation to like something that's a bit more, I don't know, just something to think about. But yeah, you can already see. Yeah, you could do that too. I mean, there's a million different things that you can do to get some of these things out of there. If we set this back, yeah, you could certainly blur your position attribute. You can do a lot of different things, but you can already see here that we're getting much nicer details. We're getting some more like of these little sinewy type things. And obviously this is that horrible looking stepping thing we were running into, but if you were back further, this would probably be fine. You could certainly get away with it. So anyways, just something to keep in mind there. And how many particles are we looking at here? So this is 601,000. So we went from like, what was it? It was only a few thousand to like 600,000 by changing this one simple trick. But anyways, that's something to keep in mind. So yeah, you might also want to turn on surface tension. I think that does look kind of nice with the vellum fluid when you're doing this small scale stuff. Around 150,000. That's a good question. It could be from the spatial sorting. Interesting. Let's try that. I'm curious now. That is an interesting question. Let's see. Nope. No, it's not from that. But interesting. That was an interesting thing to think about. Cool. There's also some solver stuff on here too for viscosity tolerance, surface tension, things like that. So, things to think about. Cool. I mean, obviously this isn't a vellum fluid like masterclass or something. That would not be something I should be teaching. But yeah. Let's see here. I think that is where we're probably going to leave this for the evening because Sorry, I'm going to turn this one back down so that if people open this, their computers aren't going to freak out. There we go. And so, yeah, so we've got our color coming through here. We've got it kind of, I mean, we've obviously changed the underlying sim a little bit. What I think I might actually render this for the opening thing for the stream. But yeah, we've got the colors coming in here. We've got some interesting stuff going on. And just as a reminder too, we can use we could have any number of things that would maybe be we could blend in the same way, right? Like as they get wet, we blend in a value that's kind of a rest value behind the scenes, right? So we could blend in, like if we wanted to do emission or something like that, that would be something to that you would have like maybe preset, like, okay, wherever this logo is, it's going to have an emission of 1, and then the rest of it's an emission of 0. And then as that fluid comes across it, you say like rest emission or something like that. And then as the fluid comes across, you do the same thing. You just blend those values together based on the wetness attribute. And if it was drying as well, it would dry in that situation. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that you could do here. Also, we could run this through the Vellum post process, and then let's see, how would we do that? Oh, that is kind of weird because, yeah, so instead of doing let me actually wire this in before I'm done. I'm just thinking of what the best way of doing this is going to be. Here's our cloth. Let's do it this way. Let's take a blast. Let's go over here. Let's grab this. We're going to blast the fluid, delete non-selected. There's our fluid, cool. It's going to get the wetness attribute. And now, we don't really even need this anymore. We'll get rid of that just to avoid confusion. And then we can put this in here. This to there. We don't need this split anymore. So now we have a higher resolution fabric that we can work with. And can use that on the solver when we reset this. So now we have our higher resolution mesh here with the fluid, and that should all work together, yeah. And this is really just, increasing the resolution of that fabric. It shouldn't really cause too much issue with the fluid. The only thing you might see a little, I don't really think you'll see it too much. You might see a little bit of separation there from it, but the other thing to note is that there should also be a thickness on this as well. If you were to, yes, that will add some weirdness there. Probably don't want to do that. We'll leave it like that. Anyways, cool. I'm going to say that that's where we're going to call it for the evening. I think it's looking pretty fun. Got some cloth doing some weird stuff, snapping a little bit. But I think it's also really neat when you see that the fabric, or that the fluid can push into this. I gave it a little bit of give in there so it can actually push into those like the pinned area. So like the edge of this is pinned down, and then it can push in there. So I think that's kind of interesting. But yeah, just neat to kind of watch the fluid or the cloth react to this fluid simulation that's sort of flowing over top of it. But cool. So that's where we will end it for the evening. Let's just move this over here. We can kind of look at it. There it is. Nice. Oh, you're very welcome, Zach. I'm happy to do it. It's only a couple hours of my time, and hopefully if people are learning stuff and getting, I just love Houdini, to be honest. I mean, I know I work for the company, but that's not why I like doing this. So, yeah, it's just, I love to be able to share the stuff. Just Houdini. It's fun. Okay, cool. Well, sorry, I don't even see what I'm showing. I'm showing my full screen. Okay, there we go. Cool. Well, thank you everybody for being a part of the stream this evening. It's always nice to have you here and chatting. If you, again, want to reach out, when I am not online, which is on Wednesday nights for me. If you're in Europe, it's probably early Thursday morning, but, so if you want to reach out, you can go on the Discord, houdinihangout.com. There's a Discord invite there. Feel free to jump in and, show what you're working on, ask some questions. I'm in there from time to time, but so are a lot of other really helpful people. So, it's a nice place to be able to kind of just, have a small community, not too many things not too many people in there, looking at all your stuff and being like, why are you doing it that way or anything like that. It's a no judgment area. So, thank you all very much for watching. You are very welcome, everyone. Always happy to be able to share something that I like a lot, which is Houdini. If you have any suggestions for future streams, please feel free to, drop those in the Discord as well. There's an entire channel called Topic Suggestions where you can add those in. There's been a couple in there recently that I think are pretty neat. And I also saw one that Crossfader, Lucas, he tagged me in it. He mentioned me in it on Twitter, and it was really cool. It was a neat little Vellum thing. So maybe that might be something I do in the not too distant future. I do have to think a little bit about how I would do that. But anyways, always open for suggestions and things like that. This was something that I kind of wanted to do on my own. Obviously, I put my logo in here, so that's kind of part of it. But I saw Crossfader actually do something like this with his logo, and I was like, I want to do that. That looks fun. So here we are. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Thank you for being a part of it. And we will see you next time. Until next week, have a good one. Bye, everybody.